100% tariffs. Yes, that's right. That's what Trump has promised to impose upon BRICS countries. Should Malaysia reconsider its decision to join BRICS? Join me, let's find out. In the world of global trade and geopolitics, the stakes are always high. President elect Donald Trump recently warned BRICS countries that if they pursue de-dollarization, they could face 100% tariffs. This is a huge warning that has caught the attention of many, especially as BRICS continues to grow in influence. Malaysia, like many other countries, is weighing the possibility of joining BRICS. But what does Trump's threat really mean for Malaysia's decision? First, let's clarify something important. BRICS is not pursuing a new global currency. This was made very clear at the Kazan BRICS summit, where leaders emphasized that there are no plans to create a single currency or adopt one of their currencies for international trade. In fact, BRICS can't even agree on a single currency to use for trade among themselves, let alone one to challenge the dollar. What BRICS is doing is far more practical. They're focusing on settling bilateral payments and transactions in their own national currencies. This isn't anything new. There's a long history of countries using their own currencies for bilateral trade, and it doesn't amount to de-dollarization. It's a practical approach to reducing reliance on the US dollar in regional and bilateral dealings. For example, Russia and China have long used their own currencies for trade, and this is simply expanding to more countries within the BRICS framework. Now let's come to Trump's warning about the 100% tariffs on BRICS countries. Let's break it down. This de-dollarization movement that Trump is warning about is mainly focused on intra-BRICS trade. In other words, it's about these countries trading with each other using their own currencies. The US would not be directly impacted unless products from these countries are re-exported to the US. In other words, so long as these goods stay within the BRICS system, there's no problem, right? No. You see, BRICS countries account for about 32% of the global GDP. They make up for about 40% of global manufacturing. Plus, they export vast quantities of food and raw materials. And the list goes on. Thanks to globalization and free trade, the BRICS countries are an indispensable part of the global trading system. So there's no way for the US to shield itself from imports from BRICS countries. So tariffs are not going to make things easier. It's going to create more problems and higher costs. There is another thing that could make things worse: mBridge, which I explained in another video. What is mBridge? It is a payment platform that allows central banks of member countries to settle international trade using their own currencies. The platform was created in 2020 by the central banks of China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and the UAE. It was managed by the Bank of International Settlements in Switzerland and therefore is part of the larger US-dominated SWIFT payment platform. Since 2020, these four central banks have been conducting trials with the help of the Bank of International Settlements. Finally, in July of this year, the Bank of International Settlements announced that the mBridge platform was a success. This meant that these countries could now settle payments using their own currencies. Other central banks could join if they wanted. A few months later, in October, during the BRICS summit in Kazan, there was some talk about adopting mBridge as a BRICS payment system, since the single currency of BRICS had been abandoned. However, shortly after the BRICS summit ended, the Bank of International Settlements decided to abandon mBridge. What happened next was extraordinary. China announced that it would take over mBridge and administer it independently, now that it had been proven viable. This development meant that the world now has two competing payment systems: the dominant SWIFT system and a new fledgling mBridge system. To date, neither China nor BRICS has declared mBridge as a BRICS payment system. However, if they do so, it would signify a seismic shift, as it would turn mBridge from being merely a tool for intra-BRICS trade into a mechanism for actively de-dollarizing international trade. Therefore, we are at a very sensitive stage. If common sense prevails, neither the US nor the BRICS would want a full-blown de-dollarization war. What happens next would determine the fate of the global economic order. So the question is, what about Malaysia? The best course of action is to watch and wait. After all, Malaysia has already arrangements with both India and China to settle trade in local currencies using the rupee and the yuan. These agreements are unrelated to BRICS membership and are entirely separate from the de-dollarization debate. They benefit Malaysia by providing more flexibility and reducing exposure to currency fluctuations in international markets. This is advantageous for Malaysia's economy and does not signal any intention to challenge the US dollar. At this sensitive juncture, Malaysia must be cautious in its approach. It is important that the government does not give the impression that it is part of an agenda to dethrone the dollar. The focus should remain on how Malaysia can benefit from BRICS in practical ways without getting involved in any broader geopolitical struggle between the US and the BRICS countries. For Malaysia, there's a lot to be cautious about, with many unknowns ahead. The best approach is to avoid pushing for quick admission into BRICS. Malaysia should allow the BRICS process to decide on upgrading its partner status without exerting any pressure. There's no need to rush. What about the other ASEAN members who have been also admitted as partner countries? Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam. I'm sure they are observing the developments closely as well. But I think it is important for these four members, including Malaysia, to make sure that the problems of BRICS do not spill over into ASEAN. So at the very minimum, I think they need to consult each other closely as these developments unfold. Hey, if you liked this video, hit the like button and share and subscribe as well. And if you'd like to know more about BRICS, well, you're in luck. I'm making this new series, BRICS, the new Global Power Bloc. There are several episodes already. The link is up there. Be sure to watch them and watch out for the new episodes. Thank you very much.